I love the question. So, if your business is causing you more pain than joy, I want you to people to understand you're not alone. Um, I used to joke around with my friends, like, yeah, I started this business that I absolutely hate and I don't want to go into every day. Or a good friend of mine calls it the doorknob effect. He tells a story about how he'd go up to his business on a daily basis, he'd sit in his car, then he'd get the courage to get out of the car. And then he'd go to the door and then he'd touch the doorknob and he called it the doorknob effect. And every time he touched the doorknob, he had to convince himself to go into the bee's nest that he called it because everybody wanted something from him. There was always an issue. There was a problem. There was a customer concern. There was a complaint, whatever. And that's not why he got into business. Not at all. And so to help people to recognize and realize and understand why they got into business, it's always good to take them back. Take them back to what is their why and for them to recognize that they're not alone in how they feel. And the biggest piece for them to pivot into is they can stop feeling that way anytime they want, believe it or not. And people are like, oh, I can't, because I'm obligated. I've got bank notes, I've got employees, I've got this. Well, you maybe can't get rid of all of that today, but to recognize that it's not working for you is so key. Typically, here's why it doesn't work for them. It doesn't work for a lot of entrepreneurs because they often have an emptiness inside, like the little black hole of emptiness within inside of themselves. And we think, I thought, well, if I just grow my business into a multi-million-dollar company, I'll feel better. Or if I just get more awards, I'll feel better. Or if I just get more accolades, I'll feel better. And none of that happened. There are all little spikes of dopamine. I felt good for a day or two, but it wasn't sustainable. And what I had to do, and with the help of my coach, is I really pivoted in more into, instead of getting external validation, I had to reframe my mindset, reframe my thought process for internal validation. And now I get that with the coaching that I do. I mean, I was a recruiter for nearly half of my life, and I've been coaching people for a much smaller period of time, and I've gotten a whole lot more joy out of anchoring into my improving lives in the light bulb moments that people have, or the aha moments that they have, or the thank you notes that I get. And that fills me up. That makes me feel like I'm contributing to making the world a better place versus when I was being a recruiter. But I could be a recruiter and I was good at it, and we were able to scale and build a company off of that backbone. But the reality is, a lot of that was external validation. Client would come and say, "Thanks so much for getting me, Bob. Can you get me two more?" Or it was kind of like you're only as good as your last game mindset in that business, where we placed somebody great there last week, but now this week we've sent two people in, they're just not performing, and it's somehow our fault. And so I think a lot of entrepreneurs, I know I did, were really wrapped up in the world telling us how great we were, or the world telling us how much we sucked. And the reality was, I was me no matter whether I had a great day or a bad day. And working from the inside out and building out my life by design really taught me that I can get internal validation anywhere I want. I was just at the grocery store this weekend, and I'm talking to somebody during these tough times through our masks, and we got into a conversation while we were standing in line, and she was sharing with me some of the struggles she was going through. And I said, well, have you looked, I'm wrapped up. She was saying, I'm really just wrapped up in the misery and the sadness and the stress and the frustration, no different than an entrepreneur goes through. I said, well, where is the opportunity in what you're dealing with right now? She stood there for a minute. She's like, I never thought there was an opportunity. And then we started talking, I think it was around homeschooling. She started talking about the different things she could do with her kids during the day that she couldn't have done if they were at school, and how to then pivot into that, and then how to make it more of a game as compared to a chore. And by the end of this 6 or 7 minute conversation, she was beaming. She was like, thank you so much. I really appreciate you helping me see the world through a different lens. Because often that's what we get stuck with as entrepreneurs, as people, as parents, as anybody, through the lens we grew up with, through the lens we've polished through our 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years on the planet. As a coach, what I come in is I point out to you that you can see it differently. A lot of people will say, why would you get into coaching? You've been a successful CEO. You're on the Inc. 5000 6 times. Why would you do this? There's so many other things you could do with your time. You could go back and start more companies, things like that. I said, well, the joy I get from coaching people comes from taking them on their hero's journey. I was on my hero's journey as an entrepreneur for nearly a quarter century, and I had coaches along the way, or I couldn't have done it without them. Well, now I'm the guide to someone else's hero's journey. And it's so rewarding and so exciting to see people have the aha moments that I had, to be able to share something to help them not have some of the pain that I shared. And And that's really why I do the coaching part of the business. And so to really help people better understand in these tough times that there's a different way to look at the world, there's a different way to see things, and sometimes it's just one or two or three conversations.